Metabolism over time, how the body builds strength and resilience. Over the past several episodes, we've been exploring the different factors that support metabolism, how nourishment, food timing, food composition, stress, sleep, and movement all influence the body's ability to produce and regulate energy. Each of those pieces plays an important role. But one of the most important things to understand about metabolism is that improvement rarely happens all at once. Instead, the body gradually becomes stronger and more adaptable as it responds to consistent patterns over time. In today's episode, we're looking at that process more closely by exploring a simple but important question. How does metabolism build strength and resilience over time? Before we go further, a quick word of wisdom. I'm not your doctor, and this podcast isn't a substitute for professional medical advice. I'll share what the research says, what I've learned, and what might support you. But before making changes to your diet or health routine, always check in with a qualified healthcare provider or practitioner. Over the past several episodes, we've been looking at the different factors that support metabolism. We've talked about nourishment, food timing, food composition, stress, sleep, and the role movement plays in supporting energy. Each of those pieces matters. But one of the most important things to understand about metabolism is that it rarely changes all at once. Instead, it improves gradually as the body begins responding to consistent signals over time. That idea can sometimes feel frustrating, especially in a culture that promises rapid results. Many health strategies are presented as quick solutions, new diets, intense workout plans, or short-term programs that promise to fix metabolism quickly. But the body usually works differently than that. Metabolism is not something that flips on or off. It's a system that responds to patterns. When the body repeatedly receives signals that support stability, regular nourishment, consistent sleep, manageable stress, and sustainable movement, it begins to rebuild strength little by little. Energy becomes steadier, recovery improves. The body becomes more capable of adapting to daily demands without feeling overwhelmed. This process is what we might call metabolic resilience. Resilience simply means that the body becomes better able to handle variation. A late night doesn't derail energy for several days. A heavier meal is processed comfortably. A demanding week can be managed without the system feeling completely depleted. In other words, the body begins to regain its ability to adapt. But that adaptability doesn't happen because of a single decision or one dramatic change. It develops through consistent rhythms practiced over time. And understanding how that process unfolds can help us approach health with a lot more patience and a lot less pressure. Because the body often builds strength in much the same way muscles do, gradually through steady progression. To see how that works, it helps to understand how the body responds when supportive patterns are repeated over time. One of the remarkable things about the human body is its ability to adapt. Given the right conditions, the body is constantly adjusting, learning, and becoming more capable of responding to what life requires. Muscles strengthen when they are used consistently. Sleep patterns stabilize when rest becomes more regular. Energy systems become more efficient when nourishment and movement occur in predictable rhythms. These changes usually don't happen dramatically. More often, they unfold quietly in the background as the body responds to repeated patterns. Think about what happens when someone begins walking regularly. At first, the body may feel slightly challenged by the activity. Muscles notice the effort, breathing increases a little more than usual, and recovery might take a bit longer. But when that same movement is repeated consistently, the body begins adapting. Muscles grow stronger, circulation improves, and the effort that once felt demanding begins to feel comfortable. Metabolism responds in a very similar way. When the body repeatedly experiences supportive rhythms, steady nourishment, restorative sleep, manageable stress, and balanced movement, it gradually becomes more efficient at producing and using energy. The system begins recognizing those patterns as reliable, and over time, it adjusts accordingly. That adjustment is what allows energy to feel more stable from day to day. Hunger signals become more predictable. Recovery improves. The body becomes less reactive to small disruptions because it has developed a stronger baseline. In other words, the system becomes more adaptable. And that adaptability often grows in ways that are subtle at first. Many people notice that they tolerate variation better than they once did. A busy day no longer leaves them completely depleted. A missed workout doesn't throw off the entire week. Even sleep disruptions become easier to recover from. These changes don't happen because the body has been forced into a strict routine. They happen because the body has had enough time to adjust to consistent support. But this process also explains why pushing too aggressively for progress can sometimes slow things down instead of speeding them up. Because while the body adapts well to gradual progression, it doesn't always respond well when demands increase faster than recovery allows. And that's where patience becomes an important part of rebuilding metabolic strength. Because the body adapts gradually, progress tends to work best when changes are introduced in a steady and manageable way. This idea can feel counterintuitive at times. When people begin focusing on their health, the natural instinct is often to improve several things at once. They may adjust their nutrition, increase exercise, change their sleep schedule, and try to manage stress more intentionally all at the same time. The motivation behind those changes is usually very positive. People want to feel better, restore their energy, and support their health as effectively as possible. But many adjustments happen all at once. The body sometimes struggles to keep up with the pace of change. For example, imagine someone who begins increasing their exercise significantly while also reducing calories and managing a demanding schedule. Each of those changes requires energy from the body. When they occur together, the system may temporarily feel more strained rather than stronger. Similarly, someone might try to push their workouts harder each week because they believe faster progress will improve results. But if recovery systems haven't fully adapted yet, that additional intensity can make the body work harder to maintain balance. Over time, this can create the feeling that metabolism isn't responding the way it should. In reality, the body may simply be asking for a different pace. The systems that regulate energy often respond best when change happens gradually enough for the body to adjust. When nourishment becomes more consistent, when sleep begins improving, and when movement is integrated thoughtfully, the body begins adapting to those signals little by little. That gradual process allows the system to strengthen rather than constantly compensate. This is why progress in metabolic health feels quieter than people expect. It may show up as slightly steadier energy, improved recovery from workouts, or the ability to handle a busy week without feeling completely depleted. These changes can seem small at first, but over time, they reflect a deeper shift in how the body is functioning. When progression respects the body's ability to adapt, improvement becomes more sustainable. And once that foundation is established, the body becomes much more capable of handling increased activity, variation in schedule, and the normal stresses of daily life. Understanding that progression helps us approach metabolism with a little more patience and a lot more confidence that steady rhythms truly do create lasting strength. From there, the next step is recognizing what kind of strategic progression actually looks like in everyday life. When people hear the word progress, they often imagine dramatic changes. But when it comes to metabolism, progress is usually much quieter than that. Strategic progression simply means allowing the body to strengthen gradually as it adapts to supportive rhythms. Instead of constantly introducing new demands, the focus shifts to building on patterns that are already working. For example, someone who begins walking regularly may notice that what once felt like a challenging pace gradually becomes comfortable. Over time, they might naturally extend the distance of their walks or add a slightly steeper route. The increase happens almost without noticing because the body has adapted to the original level of movement. Strength training often follows a similar pattern. At first, the goal may simply be learning the movements and allowing muscles to become engaged again. As the body grows stronger, resistance can increase gradually, and exercises that once felt difficult to begin feel manageable. The progression doesn't require dramatic leaps. It simply follows the body's ability to adapt. Nourishment patterns can evolve in much the same way. Someone might begin focusing on eating meals more consistently throughout the day. Once that rhythm becomes familiar, attention may naturally shift toward improving the balance of those meals or experimenting with foods that provide more lasting energy. Over time, the body often becomes more comfortable with variation because it has developed a stronger baseline of stability. This kind of progression creates resilience. Instead of relying on strict rules or constant intensity, the body learns to respond to different situations with greater flexibility. It can handle a busy week, a change in schedule, or an occasional late night without feeling completely thrown off balance. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is adaptability. When supportive habits are practiced consistently enough, the body gradually builds the strength to handle more variation without losing stability. And that kind of resilience often becomes one of the most valuable outcomes of improving metabolic health. Because when the body becomes adaptable again, daily life simply feels easier to navigate. There's also a deeper perspective that can shape how we think about growth and progress. In many areas of life, strength develops gradually. Muscles become stronger through repeated use. Skills improve through practice. Confidence grows through experience. Rarely do these changes happen overnight. Scripture often describes spiritual growth in a similar way. In James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4, we read, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." The passage highlights something that can be easy to overlook. Growth often happens through perseverance over time. Spiritual maturity doesn't appear all at once. It develops as faith and is practiced through everyday circumstances. Trust deepens gradually. Wisdom grows through experience. Over time, the steady work of perseverance shapes strength that could not have formed any other way. In many ways, the body follows a similar pattern. Metabolic strength isn't something that appears suddenly after one good week of habits. Instead, it develops as the body repeatedly experiences supportive rhythms, consistent nourishment, restorative sleep, thoughtful movement, and manageable stress. With time, the system begins to respond differently. What once felt demanding becomes manageable, and the body grows more capable of adapting to the normal variations of life. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31, captures this kind of renewal beautifully. "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint." Notice the progression in that verse. Strength is renewed, endurance grows, the ability to move forward continues. The image of walking appears again, reminding us that strength often develops through steady steps rather than sudden leaps. When we approach both faith and physical health with that perspective, the pressure to change everything immediately begins to soften. Growth does not require perfection. It requires consistency and patience as strength develops over time. And just as perseverance shapes spiritual maturity, the steady rhythms of daily life gradually shape physical resilience as well. Both forms of strength grow through faithful repetition, through the small patterns we practice day after day. As we wrap up this conversation, the most important idea to carry with you is that metabolism improves through steady progression rather than sudden change. The body is constantly responding to the patterns it experiences. When nourishment becomes more consistent, when sleep is protected, when movement is integrated thoughtfully, and when stress is managed as best as possible, the system begins adjusting to those signals over time. That adjustment is what gradually rebuilds strength. Energy becomes steadier. Recovery becomes more reliable. The body becomes better able to tolerate the normal variations that occur in daily life. This process rarely happens overnight. More often, it unfolds quietly through the rhythms that are practiced again and again. The body learns to trust those patterns, and with time, it becomes more adaptable and resilient. Sometimes additional support can help along the way. Nutritional foundations like adequate protein, hydration, electrolytes, or magnesium can support recovery as the body adapts to increased activity and daily demands. I've linked the supplement brands I personally trust in my Fullscript storefront if you ever want to explore these options. But as always, the most important foundation will be the rhythms we've talked about throughout this series. Because metabolism is not shaped by one decision or 1 week of effort, it's shaped by the patterns we practice over time. And when those patterns begin working together, sleep, nourishment, movement, and recovery, the body gradually rebuilds the strength and adaptability that allow energy to feel more stable again. So until next time, friends, stay nourished, stay steady, and choose wellness one thoughtful step at a time.